They were just walking their dog on a quiet piece of land in California's gold country, on a trail they had walked 100 times before. But that ordinary afternoon in February of 2013 would end with them staring down at the edge of an old rusted metal can, half buried beneath a tree on their own property. And what was inside would turn their lives upside down. The couple, who later chose never to reveal their real names to the public and were identified only by the pseudonyms John and Mary, had owned this rural property in California's historic gold country for years. It was unremarkable land, the kind dotted with old oak trees and worn walking paths, in a region famous a century and a half earlier for the frenzy of the California gold rush. They weren't treasure hunters. They weren't prospectors. They were simply a couple out for a walk with their dog, on a piece of land they thought they already knew everything about. That day, something caught their eye. A rusted metal can, its lid partially exposed at the base of an old tree, sticking up just slightly from the disturbed soil. Curious, they knelt down and pulled it free. It was heavy, far heavier than an empty can had any right to be. When they pried it open, they found it packed edge to edge with old coins, dulled by a century of dirt, but unmistakably gold. They almost couldn't process what they were looking at. Then they noticed something else, just a few feet away. Another can buried the same way, and then another. By the time they were done digging, they had uncovered 8 separate cans, all buried in a line beneath the same tree, all of them filled with gold coins that had been sitting undisturbed in the earth for well over 100 years. In total, the couple recovered 1,427 gold coins, nearly all of them $20 gold pieces, along with a smaller number of $10 and $5 denominations. The dates stamped into the coins ranged from 1847 all the way to 1894, spanning almost half a century of American minting history. What stunned coin experts even more than the sheer number of coins was their condition. Many of them looked as though they had barely circulated at all, still carrying sharp details and a mint-like shine, despite having spent well over a century buried in a tin can underground. When the couple eventually brought a small sample to professional numismatists for authentication, the experts were floored. This wasn't just a large hoard. It was, by face value, one of the largest buried treasure discoveries in American history, and by market value, worth an amount that would change anyone's life. Later appraisals placed the collection's worth at close to $10 million, even though the coin's original face value totaled only around $27,000. It became known publicly as the Saddle Ridge Hoard, named after the ridge on their property where it was found. But finding the gold was only the beginning of the story. The couple made a decision almost immediately. They would keep the discovery quiet. They didn't call the news. They didn't post about it. Instead, they consulted quietly with professional numismatists and historians, working to understand exactly what they had found and what their legal position was. Under California law, unlike many countries with formal treasure trove statutes that require finds to be reported to the government, coins discovered on one's own private property generally belong to the landowner if no rightful previous owner can be identified. The couple searched, along with historians, for any record of who might have buried the coins and for any surviving family who might have a legitimate claim. No definitive answer ever surfaced. No name on a deed, no diary entry, no living relative with a plausible story ever tied the coins conclusively to a previous owner. Legally, the treasure was theirs. That didn't mean it was simple. Because treasure trove finds are treated as taxable income in the United States, in the year they are discovered, the couple faced a substantial tax obligation on the hoard's appraised value, even before they sold a single coin. It's one of the lesser-known realities of finding a fortune like this. The government doesn't wait for you to cash it in. They also made the deliberate choice to sell the majority of the collection discreetly, working with a respected rare coin dealer and listing pieces gradually rather than flooding the market all at once, which could have crashed the value of the coins they intended to keep. Some of the rarest individual coins in the hoard, particularly certain 1866 no motto double eagles, were valued by experts at up to $1 million each on their own, prized not just for their age but for their exceptional, almost untouched condition. And yet, even after the legal questions were settled and the coins began quietly changing hands, one question was never answered. Who buried this treasure? And why? Historians and researchers who studied the hoard offered theories, but none were ever proven. Some pointed to the region's deep ties to the gold rush and speculated the coins may have belonged to someone connected to the era's banking or mining industry, someone with access to large sums of gold currency and a reason to hide it rather than deposit it. Others wondered whether it might be connected to an unsolved theft from decades earlier, gold that vanished from circulation and was never recovered, buried by someone who intended to come back for it and never did. No definitive link was ever established. Whoever buried those 8 cans beneath that tree took the full story to their grave. The couple who found it never sought fame. They gave no interviews under their real names, appeared in no television specials, granted no walking tours of the property. To this day, the exact location of the discovery has never been made public, and the identities of John and Mary remain protected. What they left behind, though, is one of the most remarkable true stories in the history of American treasure discoveries. An ordinary walk on ordinary land that uncovered an extraordinary secret buried for more than 100 years. But the story of the Saddle Ridge Hoard raises a bigger question that goes far beyond one property in California. If a fortune like this could sit undisturbed under a single tree for over a century, hidden in plain sight on land that changed hands multiple times without anyone knowing what lay beneath it, what else might still be out there, waiting? And that question is exactly where our next story begins.